The threat of a nuclear Iran is back in the headlines, and this time it's more urgent than ever. A chilling warning from the head of the IAEA. If Israel strikes Iran's nuclear facilities, Tehran could respond by racing toward a bomb. And to that, reports of advanced centrifuges, threats of retaliation, and a new nuclear deal between Iran and Russia. And the question now isn't just if Israel will act, but what would happen if it does. I'm Maayan Hoffman, executive editor of ILTV News, and on today's Insider, we unpack the risks, the politics, and the potential fallout with veteran journalist Steve Linde and former Knesset member Mossi Raz. Let's get started. Steve, I want to start with you. There was actually an exclusive interview that published yesterday, I believe it was, in the Jerusalem Post with the head of the IAEA, Rafael Grossi is his name, in which he warned that an Israeli strike against Iran's nuclear facilities would actually push Tehran to develop a nuclear weapon. What is your take on this? Is this just psychological warfare, or should we be taking this seriously?
My take is that Rafael Grossi is relaying a warning to Israel via Israeli outlets like the Jerusalem Post to say, give diplomacy a chance. Give the United States and others a chance to strike a deal with Iran before you talk about any military option. So I think that Iran is already pursuing a nuclear program. And so for him to say that we should worry about the day after now is sort of disingenuous.
Do you agree with the sentiments?
To tell you the truth, I don't know, because this question of Iran and the nuclear bomb is so unknown to us. I'm not sure even it is known to the Iranians themselves. For sure, it is not 100% known to Israel and US. So do they want to go on with their project? I don't know. Do Israel / US have a military way to stop them? I don't know. What is going to be the reaction? Attack on Israel, going more quick in a more quick way to bomb, leaving the NPT, I don't know, buying something from the Russians. So there are so many questions here that actually what I do think is that we cannot trust one person, even if this person was supported by me. We cannot trust only one person to deal with that. We need here to consult with the Americans, with other Israelis who understand what happens in order to take a decision.
So, Steve, you've been reporting on this for a very long time, and in recent months, there's been a lot of reports that Israel would be willing potentially to strike Iran's nuclear facilities. After October, when we had a retaliatory strike and we supposedly demolished most of Iranians' air defenses, Israel has suggested even stronger that we could cripple the nuclear facilities. Do you believe that that is true from what you're hearing in your different interviews, or do you think that this is actually Israel's bluff and that we wouldn't be able to dismantle the program anyway?
Again, I'm going to take a cue from Mossi and say I really don't know. I'm a journalist. But it seems to me, from speaking to experts, that most people believe that Israel is capable of striking Iran, just as we did, as you said, 3 times in October last year. The question is, how effective would that strike be? And I'm not sure that we could destroy the Iranian nuclear program, as we did, for example, with Iraq or Syria. Iraq in 1981, Syria in 2007. I think this is much more complicated. The Iranians are smart. They've built, nuclear stuff underground and geographically apart from each other, and I think this would be a much more complicated thing, and we would need the United States at least to back us.
100%. I mean, one of the things, and again, I'm also not a military expert, but in the interviews that I've conducted, I continue to hear that not only would we need the U.S. support, but potentially even the weapons that the U.S. has might not be enough to dismantle the program. So it is a big question mark, I think, for us to be considering. Now, we also had this very scary report come out just yesterday where the Iran's National Security Council warned in a report that came out in Iranian media that if we would strike Iran's nuclear facility, that in fact they would strike our nuclear sites, because they are claiming that they have somehow captured our documentation and they have private and proprietary information about our nuclear sites, and they could target them. So we would attack theirs and they would attack us. Mossi, do you believe these reports that are coming out? Again, we don't know, but do you believe them?
It might happen. First, of course, they want to scare us. Yes, it's every side play chicken. Yes, that's for sure. But after that, when Israel attacked Ania, we did not think that this would be the reaction of the Iranians. So sometimes you don't expect the other side to react in a terrible way, and they do. So this is a question that we have to think a lot about, because if it goes to a war, maybe it's not worth it. Second, if we can, yes, to strike in Iran, it's easy. But the question is the nuclear project, not striking in Iran. There is no question about that. We cannot eliminate Iran, eliminate the Iranian army, eliminate their weapon. Of course, this is we don't even have to think in that way. So even if we can eliminate the nuclear project, even then, we have to think about the reaction, about what will be the future of this project in the future. So many questions that we have to think.
So I want to go back to the documents for a moment. I mean, this idea that these documents have somehow either been leaked or given over, even potentially by some inside source, to the Iranians to be later used against us. Apparently, they had the documents for a long time and are only now letting us know. It calls into question, though, how is Israel protecting our proprietary information? I feel like throughout this war, we keep hearing of leaks that are getting out. We've got this whole Qatargate scandal going on. What does it say of the way that Israel is protecting their most important data, Mossi?
Again, I have to say that I don't know. For sure, Israel does a lot in order to protect secrets. And for sure, every secret is in a risk that somebody is going to cover it. So. And I don't know, by the way, I don't know if they have something or just they say.
Right.
I don't know even that. So, but for sure, every country, every agency, every military tries to do the best in order to protect secrets, and Israel is the same. Now we see this game in the net. They recruited a kid, 13 years old. This is, of course, bullshit. Okay, maybe they told this kid, let's do, but the secrets are not coming out from kids age 13, but I don't know. Maybe they had somebody who leaked to them. Maybe they had a spy. We don't know.
Right. Well, we think back to when we stole all of the Iranian documentation, right? And that was really a clandestine mission. But it doesn't appear that Iran carried out something to that effect. But it does raise a lot of question marks as to the security of our data and how that could be used against us. But I think even more scary in some capacity, Steve, is this idea that Iran signed a deal with Russia to develop these civilian nuclear facilities. Now, we've looked at the IAEA report where they've clandestinely tested their uranium enrichment. We know that there's a very fine line between civilian programs and the ability to weaponize that uranium. How does Russia, a westernized country, regardless of their connection or closeness with Iran, sign an agreement like this?
Well, again, I'm not sure that we can trust the Russians so much either here. And I wouldn't say that Russia is a westernized country in the sense that Russia has clearly aligned itself with Iran, especially in recent years. And I think Russia built the first Iranian nuclear plant, even if it was for civilian purposes, in Bushehr, and has continued to help Iran build civilian nuclear facilities, which on the face of it are fine. The question is, will Iran at the same time enrich uranium and turn these into military nuclear plants which can manufacture bombs? And I think that's what we need to be concerned about. President Putin had a phone call recently with President Trump in which he said he wanted to play a role in resolving this whole issue. Again, I think we need to be skeptical but understand that there's something going on here, and that we need to find out exactly what the Trump plan is when it comes to Iran, and whether this deal will in fact be reached, maybe even as soon as this weekend in Oslo or Oman.
Right, they're saying they're going to meet again on Sunday. I want to go back for a minute, Steve, though, just to reminisce about the history of the Non-Proliferation Treaty. There's been different examples of countries that have broken it. For example, North Korea signed it and then broke it and tested nuclear weapons. So would the inclination be to lump Iran more into a category like North Korea, or more into a category like maybe Japan, right, who had a different way of handling it, but had, of course, an accident? What are your thoughts?
Again, I think Iran stands by itself here. I mean, it's a rogue state. From Israel's point of view, it's the head of the octopus in the sense that it finances and encourages terrorist organizations like Hamas, Hezbollah, and the Houthis, and we have to keep that in mind when we're we're not negotiating, but when we watch the Americans negotiate perhaps another deal with Iran. I think the 2015 deal was problematic, and I hope that we've learned our lessons. I think that one of the lessons we should have learned from October 7th is that if our enemies threaten us, threaten to kill us, threaten to annihilate us, we need to take that seriously. And the Iranians have not minced words when it comes to Israel and the fact that they would like us off the face of the earth. And so I think we should always bear that in mind and put Iran in a category of its own. It really is the top existential threat to Israel today.
Mossi, do you agree with that it's a top existential threat? That's number one. And number two, do you feel, what would happen? You mentioned the proxies. If Iran got this nuclear weapon, what is the vision for, obviously there's many options on the table, but what is the vision for what could be carried out?
First, I agree that Iran is a category for itself. We cannot know if it is North Korea or Israel or, I don't know, Pakistan or whatever. And this is the risk. Yeah, nobody thinks that for sure, if they have a weapon, they're going to use it. But this is the risk. Second, I really don't know if it affects their allies, because they had their allies all over the years, and all over the years we were in clashes between us and them. So let's assume that they have a bomb. I don't think that it's going to change anything in the clashes between Israel and Hamas, Israel and the Houthis, Israel and
Well, what
Hezbollah.
if Iran would say...
It's going to change Israel-Iran, that's for sure. That's for sure. So I don't think that if we look at Hezbollah and Hamas is pretty strong now. Pretty strong. I'm saying that after this war, Hezbollah is not. Houthis are not going to stop probably before the end of the war in Gaza. So I don't see any connection between that to their nuclear project.
You wouldn't be concerned that perhaps Iran would send some of their weapons over to the proxies and allow them to act on their behalf? Or would this be actually a deterrent so that we couldn't fight Hamas and Hezbollah because there was a fear that if we did take too strong action, Iran would take action against us?
We have to be concerned about everything. Yes, we live in a world that, states attack each other. We see what happens between Russia and Ukraine. Yes, here they bleed way more than us. Yes, so we have to be concerned about everything. But the Iran giving that bomb to their proxies, everything is possible, but I think very low chances.
And what about an arms race? I think about Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, all of those who trusted the West to keep Iran from getting a nuclear weapon, who thought that Israel, the Abraham Accords, would hopefully be a deterrent, and then Iran, let's say, gets the bomb. So would they then all want to be nuclear as well?
Potentially, yes, but...
So what does that look like?
Yeah, it doesn't bode well for the Middle East and the region in general if there's a nuclear arms race. And I think probably the international community needs to do all it can to stop that, which is what President Trump is trying to do now, and perhaps in the process will get the Nobel Peace Prize. I remain skeptical, though, and I'm interested to know what you think, Mossi, like being someone on the left of the political spectrum, there have been several attempts in Israel's history plans to attack Iran. How have you stood on this, and how do you feel about an Israeli attack on Iran?
As I said earlier, I don't know, but I'm really afraid of it. First, because I don't trust our leadership. I don't trust our leadership. I see how they deal with Gaza. So how can they deal with Iran? I see how they deal with the West Bank. How can they deal with Iran? So this is and second, I'm afraid Netanyahu is not in his first year of his prime ministership. Yes, he was elected first time almost 30 years ago, and he speaks 30 years about Iran. So what is different now? That we have elections, that he failed in the war in Gaza. So I'm not saying that I'm right in that, but I raise questions because I don't trust this leadership. Mm-hmm. And I think I'm not the only Israeli who doesn't trust this leadership. So we are in a deep problem. If we do need to act, still we will not have the trust. This is a real problem. So I believe that if Israel attack alone without US, then we take a very, very large risk.
I mean, I agree with you if I can say that. I think that Israel shouldn't be doing this alone. But the difference now, in response to what you said, is that we have a very strong president in the White House who is very supportive of Israel, and we have a prime minister in Israel, whether you trust him or not, whose legacy, at least from his point of view, if he wants to salvage his legacy now after October 7th, I think should be...
His legacy is October 7th.
No,
even 100 years from now, people will remember him because of October 7th, not anything else, even if he attacked in Iran.
But what I'm saying is, if he can try now to salvage his legacy by attacking Iran and then going down in history as the man who stopped Iran from becoming nuclear... people will remember Olmert as the man who stopped Syria. People will remember Begin as the man who stopped Iraq. No, they remember Begin as the man who had the peace with Egypt. Maybe a little bit the war in Lebanon. They remember Olmert because of his corruption. So I don't think that, and for Netanyahu, who was the prime minister under October 7 and the 20 months since October 7 that were bad enough, I think nothing is going to change his legacy. Even if he attacks Iran, people will not remember him as the prime minister who attacked Iran. But people remember him as the prime minister who was responsible for October 7.
But they might remember President Trump. I mean, you mentioned the Nobel Peace Prize. Trump is also in his final term, also wants to leave a legacy. So while you could be correct or not correct, we'll see about Netanyahu, who might then charge forward. There is an argument for Trump not actually being able to sign this deal and encouraging Israel or backing Israel to attack to leave his legacy. Do you think that that's possible, that maybe the together legacy?
Look, anything's possible. I think that Trump, for now, wants to be the deal maker, and I think he's putting all his money into making a deal. I think with a carrot and a stick. The stick is the international sanctions, and the carrot is, all kinds of promises of if Iran signs that, it'll no longer be a pariah state, that it'll be welcomed back into the fold of civilized nations, etc. Whether Trump succeeds remains to be seen. Again, I don't know. But I think that the military option is just a threat on the back burner at the moment and not a real threat at this time. Although I'm sure that Trump and Netanyahu have spoken a couple of times just last night in the last week, must be discussing this, the military option. Again, I think Israel can't do it without the United States, and I think the United States doesn't want Israel to do anything right now. So for now, the deal on the table seems to be the best option.
And we only have a couple minutes left, but Mossi, why would Iran sign this deal? They've got China, they've got Russia. The whole shift in the regional dynamics is changing, and the world powers is changing. Couldn't Iran just head to Europe and leave the U.S. behind?
This is a good question. I don't know, but I think that there are many things in Iran that we don't really understand. And the main question is, why don't they have a bomb right now? Why? There is no deal for almost a decade, not decade, 9 years or 8 years, something like that, maybe 7. For many years, there is no deal. Why don't they have a bomb? So I think I don't know. I think that they did not take the decision that they want to have.
But now they could. So unfortunately, that is all the time that we have this evening. I do want to thank you, Mossi Raz and Steve Linde, for joining me tonight. For more of the latest from ILTV, sign up for our newsletter and visit our application. That's ILTV Insider for this week. I'm Maayan Hoffman, Executive Editor. Have a safe and pleasant evening.